Podcast Answer Man, episode number 263.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference. This is GSPN.TV. Join the community.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this, my friends, is the podcast about podcasting, helping you take your show to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new podcaster, if you have been podcasting for many years, or you haven't quite yet recorded that first episode. We've got a Podcasting A to Z, of course, for that. Hey, my friends, there's something we can all do to take our show to the next level. That's right, my friends, and today, to take things to the next level, I am going to attempt to record a lot of content into this episode. In fact, we're going to be talking about how to manage multiple brands. We're going to talk a little bit about personal mission statements, business mission statements, how we can keep things all straightened out in our branding online, creating multiple podcasts. I'm also going to briefly tell you about the upcoming July 2012 Podcasting A to Z course that I am finally accepting registrations for. And also, I will be including a 45-minute interview with Noah Shanok, who is the CEO of Stitcher Radio. Very excited about some of the content that has come out in that interview, and I wanted to share the full 45 minutes with you. And as a result of that, due to the length of this interview, I have had to take a lot of content that I wanted to throw into episode 263 and push that off for episode 264 next week. But because the minutes count, actually the seconds count in the opening of this episode, I'm going to go ahead and start things off right now with a question from Spencer regarding managing multiple brands.
Hey Cliff, this is Spencer from the Video Snapcast. I had a question. I am looking to start another show that is not at all connected to the Video Snapcast. It has nothing to do with making video on a beginner level. It's not even video related at all. And I have some concerns about going forward in terms of just a consistency as I present myself as the creator of these two different shows that really have two completely different audience bases. So the one show, Video Snapcast, is a little bit more techie, but my other show is going to be much more lifestyle. I'll have my wife on the show and interview lots of different people probably about a variety of different things, all contained in one show, but much more, family focused and lifestyle. So I just wanted to ask you about that. What's been your experience, things you'd recommend doing or not doing, if there's been a lot of crossover or, just how that's been. Anyways, I appreciate all you're doing. And thanks again for being a huge inspiration for me to start podcasting. I think every time I listen to your show, I get excited about podcasting, and it's just great. I love it. So I would encourage anybody who's listening to the show that hasn't started podcasting yet to get started. Just get started, get going on it, and have a good time with it. Anyways, thanks, Cliff. Again, appreciate all you do.
Thank you so much, Spencer. And yes, just get started is the same advice that I would give you if you've been thinking about starting a podcast. And of course, I'm going to tell you about the Podcasting A to Z course in just a moment. But Spencer, you bring up an amazing question. And honestly, this is a topic that has been a major focus for the Podcast Mastermind. We've got 42 members of the Podcast Mastermind, and we meet together quite often. And in our meetings, the topic of our personal brand is oftentimes a central focus of some of the conversations we have. Many of us are podcasting about our passions, and oftentimes you get so excited about podcasting and just how things take off, and you want to create another podcast. Sometimes it's somewhat closely related, and you can connect it to an overall brand that basically reaches mostly the same target audience, but some may be more interested in one podcast versus the other, or or vice versa. And of course, anybody who is trying to reach the exact same target audience and expects all of the people who listen to one to also listen to the other, I always try to recommend that those people condense that down to one podcast and create one excellent podcast rather than two really awesome podcasts. There's nothing wrong with two really awesome podcasts, but one superb, excellent, amazing podcast is even better. But there are times when, what if you, let's say, have a brand called Podcast Answer Man, and you also have a very deep passion for your faith, and you want to create a show, let's say, called Encouraging Others Through Christ. Or it sounds to me like, Spencer, you want to start a show with your wife and have a family focus. And I have a show like that over at familyfromtheheart.com. And so I have all of these different passions, and I've created so many different shows. Now, I've gone to the furthest extreme, which I totally I advised against it. There was one point where I was recording 7 to 15 podcast episodes a week. I never advise that unless you have found a way to monetize all of your stuff through that one through content production alone. You know, if you're trying to, try to pay the bills through your coaching and consulting and through your other services and products that you offer, podcasting 7 to 15 episodes a week on top of all of that, it's just too much. You can pull it off. I pulled it off for several years, but it landed me in the hospital twice. It's not something that I would want anybody else to do. And life's so much more about, living longer and having margin so that you can be there and benefit people's lives for such a greater amount of time. And so I recommend trying to hone this stuff down and not get carried away and create too much. But there are times when you will have the video snapcast, and then all of a sudden it's like, it doesn't make sense to put Spencer's Family Cast on the video snapcast. I would not recommend that at all. Now, for me, what do I have? I created this thing called the Generally Speaking Production Network. So Podcast Answer Man is actually one of my shows that is a part of the business brand of GSPN.TV. All right. So Podcast Answer Man is one show of several shows for GSPN.TV. Whereas every show stands a little bit on its own in its own kind of business brand. Family from the Heart is its own brand. Encouraging Others Through Christ.com, it's its own brand. Although those all are under the umbrella of GSPN.TV and that one website, they still have a distinct purpose and a mission of their own, and they're separate. The target audience isn't exactly the same. And certainly with Podcast Answer Man, it's something so unique that not only does it exist on GSPN.TV, but it has its own identity on the web. I syndicate it out. I take Podcast Answer Man. It starts at podcastanswerman.com, but I do syndicate this episode, or this show, if you will, to my GSPN.TV network. Now, how do I manage all of this? I manage all of this stuff by thinking about the difference between my personal brand and my business brand. And here's the thing. I would imagine that if I had to guess just and throw out a number, 98% of the people who listen to Podcast Answer Man, if they were to ask you, or if you were to ask them, what is my brand? If somebody wanted to know who Cliff Ravenscraft is, what kind of would define what he's all about? And many people would say Cliff Ravenscraft's brand is Podcast Answer Man. Cliff Ravenscraft is Podcast Answer Man. Podcast Answer Man is Cliff Ravenscraft. That's who he is. That's his identity. I will tell you right now that is not the answer that I would give. It is not. Podcast Answer Man is one part of who I am. It's one part of my brand. And that's why on Twitter, my Twitter account, I'm kind of glad that I didn't get Podcast Answer Man, because I could only get Podcast Answer Ma, M-A, because the N wouldn't fit. I couldn't get Cliff Ravenscraft because the T wouldn't fit. I just bummed. So I'm stuck with just GSPN, which is, and I couldn't even do .tv. So it's just GSPN on Twitter. But you know what? I'm kind of glad that I've kind of built my own personal brand. You know, who Cliff Ravenscraft is multifaceted. I am more than Podcast Answer Man, although you guys know me. You listen, I am extremely passionate about podcasting, helping people understand how to podcast and take their podcast to the next level, and sharing my story and my online business efforts and all of that stuff, and bringing that to this one thing called Podcast Answer Man. So passionate about it that I decided that it didn't make sense for me to do a different show called Business Tech Weekly and a different show called Social Media Serenity. I wanted to bring all of that to Podcast Answer Man as well. And I realized, wow, this needs to be tied together. I want to do not 3 really good different podcasts for this audience, but I wanted to create one awesome show called Podcast Answer Man that incorporates the best of podcasting and technology help, the best in business technology, the best in social media, all of my experiences wrapped into this nice brand over here. And for many of you, I am the Podcast Answer Man. But for so many other people, I am the Hunger Games guy. You know, the guy that gets behind for thousands, for more than, I'd say, I think probably 30,000 people around this world. When they hear Cliff Ravenscraft, if they knew who I was, which after 30 or some odd hours of listening to me and my wife talk about the Hunger Games, they probably know who I am by now. But if my name came up, I would be that guy who records podcasts about the Hunger Games, who sits down, reads a couple chapters, and gets behind a microphone and talks about the Hunger Games in a really different and unique way that no other podcast does. For many other people, you ask them who Cliff Ravenscraft is, and it would say, they would say Cliff Ravenscraft is the Family from the Heart guy, or Cliff Ravenscraft is the GSPN.TV guy, or Cliff Ravenscraft is all of these other things. And my daughter is here in the studio, so I'm going to pause for just 1 second. And I'm back. Daddy duties calls. Anyway, so the situation is that I am more than any one of my brands. And by the way, my podcasting A to Z students, you know what? Many of them would still say I am Podcast Answer Man, and they still do. But, for them, podcasting A to Z, but Podcast Mastermind. Podcast Mastermind to me is a completely, it's unique thing. It's a different thing. It's not just focused on podcasting. So here's the thing. I would recommend, Spencer, that you have a listen to the Entre Leadership podcast from Dave Ramsey. I'll put links to it in the show notes. And the reason why is because I believe we need to always start with the why. First of all, who am I? Why do I do anything that I do? Have I discovered what my own personal mission statement is? And I think that that's important before we start thinking about the work that we do, before we start thinking about the businesses that we're going to put our hands to, or the podcast, the brands that we're going to create, the tribes that we're going to lead. Let's first find out, what is it? Who am I? What is my identity? What motivates me? What's my mission? What's my purpose? That's where I like to start, is starting with the why do I do what I do. If you want to find out why I do what I do, go to podcastanswerman.com/why, and you'll hear an episode where I've consistently been battling, what is it that I do? And here's the other thing that I want to tell you is that once you have that, every podcast that you create, before you record your first episode, you should kind of think to yourself and preferably write it down. What is the mission and the purpose here? What is my mission statement for this? And the reason why I suggest that you check out the Entre Leadership podcast from Dave Ramsey, back on December 19th, 2011, they released an episode with an interview with my good friend Dan Miller from 48 Days to the Work You Love. Anyway, and you can check out his podcast, by the way, at 48days.com/listen. Anyway, Dan Miller talked with Dave the guys over there, about personal mission statements. And I had heard Dan talk about personal mission statements forever. It's been on my to-do list forever. And, I never really got around to it. I kind of have a feeling for, who I am, what I'm doing. But oftentimes, I still wish I had a statement that I could read to clearly define, does this fit in with what my own personal mission is? Does this new show carry out what I'm trying to do in my life? Or does this new business opportunity? Does Blog World fit into my personal mission statement? Does the podcast Mastermind fit into my personal mission statement? Does Family from the Heart? Does any of these other shows that I do, any of the other work that I might accomplish, does it fit into my personal mission statement? Now, here's the thing. I didn't have a personal mission statement until I was having this conversation about what is our personal brand inside of the podcast Mastermind. And in the conversation, I pulled out a quote from my interview with Michael Hyatt a couple weeks ago. And in that interview, he says, really, when we talk about personal brand, we're really talking about managing our online reputation, or what do we want to be known for? And that got me to thinking. It's like, and here's the thing. For me, I don't know that I want to be known for Podcast Answer Man. I certainly want that to be one of the things that I'm known for. But what I want to be known for is this, and this. And it's like, wow, I wonder if I could turn that into a personal mission statement. And so I sat down for an hour and took those 4 statements that I want to be known for, and I put it together in one solid statement, and I called it my personal mission statement. And here's what I did. I sent it over to Dan Miller and asked him, what do you think? And let me read to you my personal mission statement and tell me if this doesn't clearly define who Cliff Ravenscraft is. All right. My mission is to dedicate my life to entertaining, educating, encouraging, and inspiring others, to share my passions and experiences in life in an authentic and transparent way that inspires others to make positive changes in their lives. I want to be known as a follower of Jesus who authentically attempts to live out my faith, though I may fail miserably at times, in a way that engages popular culture without turning others off. I want to always be prepared to give a reason for the hope that I have, and to be ready to do so with gentleness and respect. That, my friends, is who Cliff Ravenscraft is. It doesn't matter if I'm podcasting. It doesn't matter if I'm out on the lake hanging out with my kids on Memorial Day weekend. It doesn't matter if I'm going to go as a professional speaker. It doesn't matter if I'm going to write books. It doesn't matter if I'm doing whatever. And so I asked Dan, I said, Dan, you're the personal mission statement guy. And I don't even remember, Dan, all of the different things that you said that it should include. I know there are like 4 or 5 things you mentioned in your interview on EntreLeadership, and I forgot to go back and listen to those. But let me just ask you, does this mission statement, is there anything I'm missing that's critical that would help me further? And I sent that in an email to Dan, and he says, no, Cliff, you're right on the money. It's very personal and yet broad enough you could change careers or jobs and find plenty of other ways to embrace your mission. Podcasting is certainly not the only way. You can hold what you're doing now up against that mission statement to verify that you are fulfilling it. But you could decide to do something else, and again, use that mission statement as a filter to affirm or eliminate other options. Sounds great. So Spencer, how do I manage my multiple brands? I manage my multiple brands by simply knowing who I am personally. And that's what matters most. Podcast Answer Man, it pains me to even say this as a possibility. Podcast Answer Man could go away and Cliff Ravenscraft would still exist. There could be a time down the road where I'm no longer doing Podcast Answer Man, but I'm just doing the Podcast Mastermind. Or there could be a time when I'm not doing Podcast Answer Man, I'm not doing Podcast Mastermind, and I could just be doing Encouraging Others Through Christ. There could be a time where I'm not doing podcasting, but instead I'm producing, an online television network that fulfills my mission and purpose. I say all of those things, but please don't write those down. Don't hold me to those, because here's the thing. As far as I can see, I can never see the day when I'm not going to do Podcast Answer Man anymore. As far as I can see, I can't see a day when I won't be doing the Podcast Mastermind. In fact, I'm going to be focused more on Podcast Mastermind than I will on Podcast Answer Man related stuff. But the thing is these are still the heaviest focus. That's where I am. It's where my heart is, and where I I don't see me changing. It's the direction I'm going. It's the path I'm going down, and I'm going to continue to share it with you. But the thing is I still do Family from the Heart every single week. In fact, let me just share with you real quickly. If I go to familyfromtheheart.com, I'm at episode 211 on that show. 211 episodes of Family from the Heart. I have actually, Podcast Answer Man, what is this? This is episode number 263. I don't know if you guys know this, but I have already surpassed 3,000 podcast episodes. And so how do I manage those multiple brands? Number one, I'm Cliff Ravenscraft. I am not my brand. I have my own personal brand, my own personal mission, my own personal me. But here's the thing, your question, and then we're already going to be at least 10 minutes over on this episode, over an hour. So here's the thing, going back to your original question, Spencer, you asked, is there crossover? You better believe there's crossover. Let's just say if you have 34,000 people listening to the Hunger Games podcast, and by the way, the first 6,000 of those subscribers I built solely from Twitter. I mean, I used a Twitter strategy that helped me build and gain 6,000 subscribers to my podcast. Guaranteed that's exactly how they found out about me. I know it for a fact. And not only that, for most of those 6,000 people, the very first podcast they ever heard in their life was the Hunger Games fan podcast. Guess what? Many of those people listened to the podcast not because they had any desire to find out who I was, because they were passionate about Hunger Games. And because they were passionate about Hunger Games, they actually started to get to know myself and my wife. They started to feel some kind of connection, and they started to listen to other shows. So yes, there's definitely crossover. And there is a small percentage every now and then in the Hunger Games podcast. I'll say, hey, if you enjoy this podcast, did you know that you could create a podcast about things that you're passionate about? Go over to learnhowtopodcast.com. And you know what? Some of those people do. In fact, a percentage of those people do. I've never really tracked the exact number, but here's the thing. I would say it's in the hundreds, if not close to over 1,000 people from the Hunger Games podcast who have gone through learnhowtopodcast.com and started podcasting as a hobby. And I do know this for a fact because I do see where the traffic comes from when they're coming from the show notes when they click on the link. Also, I know some people who have gone through the tutorial for Learn How to Podcast as a hobby. They've got the foundation. They say, well, I want to do this professionally. This is so much fun. And they say, you know what? How I originally heard about you before I decided to hire you to coach and consult me, or before I decided to take your podcasting A to Z course, I found you through the Hunger Games, or I found you through the Virtual Assistant podcast, or I found you through the Twilight Saga podcast, or the Lost podcast, or whatever the case may be. So Spencer, yes, it is. You're going to see some crossover. The important thing, how do you manage it all? Number one, manage yourself. Make sure you understand who you are. You, Spencer, are not the video Snapcast guy. You, Spencer, are not the family podcast guy. Spencer, you are you. Identify clearly who you are, and then make sure that who you are fits into those brands, that you're not just chasing after things because that's where the audience is. So that is my answer about how to manage multiple brands. And with that being said, I am going to turn things straight over to the interview with Noah Shanok, who is the CEO of Stitcher Radio. And I'll tell you about Podcasting Answer Man, or Podcasting A to Z, July's course, at the end of the interview. So here you go. All right, my friends, I am so excited to be on the line with Noah Shanok, who is the CEO of Stitcher Radio, a service that seems to be taking the podcasting world by storm. And even in my own opinion, I think it's kind of one of the indicators. Their company is one of the indicators about the future of podcasting. So, Noah, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Cliff, thanks so much for having me.
Well, hey, the first thing I want to ask you is when, how, and why did Stitcher Radio get started?
Great question. So Stitcher. So we launched on the iPhone in 2008, and the original idea came from a couple of places. One, I was an early adopter of Pandora, and I understood with a two-way internet connection that you can just get a lot more value as a listener because you can personalize the radio versus a one-way broadcast connection. And I was also an early adopter of podcasts, and I love seeing how much and hearing the breadth of content that was available. But it was painful because you had to download and you had to sync, and discovery wasn't as automatic as it needed to be. And so I figured, and people consume content other than music when they're on the go doing other things. So my thought was, if there was really going to be a mobile internet connection, then people would want to consume what they want when they want to. And if we could do it in a way that's automated and helps them to discover new stuff, then that would be a huge advance forward for radio, both from the producer side and from the listener side. So that's how it came about, and it's coming along great.
So Noah, was this originally your idea then back in 2008 to launch this thing?
The original the original idea was mine, but I launched it with a technical co-founder, Peter DeBrody, and since then, as the vision has never changed, but things morph along the way, and now we have a fantastic team, and so it's a collaboration of a lot of different ideas that come from all of us in the product.
You know, my good friend Andy Traub, he's from the Take Permission Podcast Network, and he wanted me to ask how Stitcher separates itself from apps like Downcast's, Podcasts, and the various other podcasting apps that allow users to create their own channels from their podcast feeds, oftentimes based upon, the directory listings that are publicly made available.
Sure. So I guess the first differentiator is the price is right. So Stitcher's free. Stitcher can also, as you know, makes it easier for listeners to create their own channels from podcasts that they like, and then beyond that, content discovery is a huge priority for us. We hear from partners that after iTunes, Stitcher's the top platform for discovery of shows, and we have algorithms that recommend shows based on your listening, and we're actually about to launch more discovery tools. We're seeing with the discovery tools we have already that, for instance, 50% of new listeners use our listeners also like feature to discover, and they discover an average of 5 new shows per week that they listen to. Stitcher also has app integrations with a growing number of car manufacturers, and that makes it easier and safer to listen while driving. And then Stitcher streaming is more reliable and doesn't hog bandwidth because of our compression technology. Stitcher's also we do curate content, so we have a best of. We have an editorial staff that takes a look at what content folks are liking, and we try to unearth new stuff that way. And then recently we launched an election center, which has got some really cool transcription technology and unearths what topics are trending in politics today, and allows listeners who are interested in the elections to keep up with to keep up with candidates and the topics that are of interest today.
There are a couple things that I want to bring up here, and I hope you don't mind me asking a very difficult question or a hard question for you. But here's the one thing. You guys had been around since 2008. I think I'm pretty sure I just got added to Stitcher Radio for Podcast Answer Man and many of my other GSPN.TV shows here this year, 2012. So it's been many years. And one of the things I can tell you is that for probably 18, 19, 20 months, I got repeated requests, usually one every 2 to 3 months, but repeated requests over almost 2 years for people who said, hey, I really wish you would get on that Stitcher Radio. I can't seem, I love Stitcher Radio. It's my favorite app, but I can't get your show. Your show is the only one that I still want on there. Can you please go and add it? And of course, there were other services out there called Slacker Radio and some other things, and I got you guys confused with some of those other services where content producers, to actually sign up, they actually had to pay to be a part of the service. So I guess my difficult question for you is this idea of curated content versus allowing somebody who has the application to just throw in their own RSS feed and say, hey, this is content I really love, and the content producers won't get off their hind ends and go and find out more and submit themselves. What are you doing to kind of deal with that?
Yeah, so a couple different things. One, we do get a lot of inbound requests, and so we're very proactive about those. Two, we are doing our best and increasing our capacity to reach out to potential content partners that we want to be on our service. To be on our service, we do, and there's so much great content out there, but we want to formalize relationships with content partners. We want all of the content that's on Stitcher to be content that listeners are going to want to hear. So we do we screen somewhat, like, we obviously wouldn't put up any content that's pornographic or hate content or anything like that. So we're careful we're careful about that. And we are up to 7,000 shows now available. So we've increased our capacity a lot. But the primary purposes of not just allowing users to add RSS feeds directly is, one, we want to formalize relationships with content partners where it's our approach to work hand in hand with you. And two, we want to make sure that the selection of content that's available is the absolute best. But you were added 4 years too late, so at least you're on there now.
Yeah, and I totally see both sides of this. As a content producer, I don't know that I'd want my content added to your network with the fact that it's being, knowing that it's actually going through a whole new process of compression. And obviously there's the potential in the future that you may include advertisement that you might generate income from, that that if without any kind of formalized agreement, there would be no ability for me to kind of get in on that or be aware that it's happening. So I can see it from my perspective as a content creator, but as a user of Stitcher Radio and somebody who unfortunately may not have ever heard about podcasting before, all of a sudden they've been told about Stitcher Radio, or it came included on their car system, or whatever the case may be. Now they've been introduced to this world of podcasting, and they just got that one guy, that Podcast Answer Man guy. I've been emailing him. I email Stitcher every single day, and the guy will not get himself on there. How do I get his content? I guess I'm going to have to go find another way to get all of those great producers' contents that just won't take the time to go and add themselves to that content delivery system.
Yeah, no, it's true, and it's something that we've battled internally. But our part of our mission is really strong relationships with content partners, and then also having the highest quality content available on Stitcher. And that's probably That's probably why out of the other the other apps that are available were likely the most popular. We have 5 million registered users. We're growing very quickly. So hopefully the benefits of our decision outweigh the early hurdles. And we're increasing, and as I mentioned, we're certainly increasing our onboarding capabilities faster and faster.
Well, you mentioned curated content and that you have an editorial staff. Do you guys have some kind of guideline? Now, you obviously just shared with me that, adult-oriented content, is profanity something that you're looking for? Explicit language is there a line or that you draw in the sand that says we won't go this far?
It would have to be pretty far. I mean, obviously, a lot, especially in the comedy sector, there's a fair amount of profanity. We're talking about we're talking about extremes, and we also and iTunes can help be a guide for us that way. So we'll check to see if it's available on iTunes, and we'll just make it's rare that we choose not to include the content, but we also want to be really we do want to be careful about it.
You mentioned something about transcription technology, and I would just want to say, by the way, Rachel that works with you guys, she is absolutely amazing. She is on top of everything. And I don't know that I'd be on Stitcher today if it wasn't for her persistence and her patience. So keep her around. But anyway, I think she's mentioned something about the transcription technology. I've not had a chance to look into this any further to see what she was talking about. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in this transcription that you guys that you've acquired and what you're planning to do with it?
Yeah, so it's super cool. So the way that it works now is basically all of our news and politics content is we transcribe the audio and analyze the words in the audio and see topics that that are trending and what candidates are saying. So it might be jobs, it might be the economy, it might be something that's more time sensitive, and then so it shows listeners what's trending, and then allows listeners to choose the content, and then it'll show all the mentions within a particular episode, and then listeners can either listen to the full episode or listen basically just from those offsets. And you can imagine the possibilities more broadly for this in terms of getting listeners to the topics of interest that they want to hear, and giving content producers more opportunity to find those listeners based on what it is that they're talking about.
So the transcription technology is only currently being applied to the news and politics category. Are you looking to expand that in the future?
We are, and we figured that the 2012 election was a great jumping off place for us. Great for us to learn about the technology and refine it. Great way to get feedback from listeners on what's working and what's not. But the technology that we have available to us, plus the two-way internet connection, it just has not been harnessed in full yet to deliver the audio experience that we believe we can deliver. So we are planning on rolling it out more widely, and we're using this as a stepping stone.
Great. The next question I have for you is about car manufacturers. One of the things that really got me excited about Stitcher Radio when I first started to look into it and see if I was going to spend some time to, go through and read these content provider agreements and all this stuff. What got me excited is to read that you guys you'd already signed deals to get into manufacturers' car radio systems, the actual factory radio systems in Ford, and I think I just read a report at something about BMW. Are there any other manufacturers that you're getting into?
Yeah, that's so. The ones that you mentioned are correct. Ford was we made they were the first to announce, and they announced with us and then Pandora on the music side, and it was at the Consumer Electronics Show, and Ford's CEO, who was a keynote, him and his team basically announced it then. So that was very exciting for us because in-car connectivity, the car obviously is a huge place where people consume this content, and we want it to be as easily accessible as possible. So since then, we've also added GM as a partner, including all of their brands: Buick, GMC, Cadillac, and Lincoln. And then, as you mentioned, BMW. We haven't launched with them yet. We've made the announcement, and we are going to be launching on all BMW and Mini models in this fall.
So how does this work? Let's just say I buy one of these brand new cars that has this radio that supposedly I heard is going to have Pandora and Stitcher radio. Is this an app that I have to go and install into my radio, or am I going to roll this off the car lot and Stitcher radio's there?
Yeah, so it works. It works in a variety of ways. With some of the higher end units, none that have been announced yet, but we'll be announcing shortly with a couple of other manufacturers. Sometimes the internet connection goes directly into the car, and then Stitcher's basically just on deck in the head unit. In most cases, though, the connection and most of the heavy lifting is done on the mobile device. So, but it stays in your pocket and connects through Bluetooth or connects through a 30-pin connector, and then basically there's a full dashboard takeover of Stitcher. So you could literally, and in Ford's case, they're using some they're using some voice technology. So you could literally get into your car, your car pairs and never comes out of your pocket. You pull up Stitcher and then say play podcast Answer Man, and then it just starts playing out of your speakers, and you've got full audio controls on your dashboard.
Nice. And I guess these cars are starting to come with either 3G or 4G internet connectivity and stuff like that these days as well.
Some are, and there's definitely there's trade-offs to both to doing it through the mobile device and or directly into the car. But it's going to become more pervasive. But in the meantime, there's already 80 million, 90 million drivers in the United States that have internet connections in their car. It just happens to be through their smartphone. And what we're working on is just making that experience as easy and safe as possible to listen to all of your favorite content.
Now, I've browsed the website for Stitcher Radio quite a bit, in my research that I was doing for you guys, and it seems like everything is obviously app driven, which makes sense. That's where you got started. That was the original idea, the purpose, and everything. Is there any plans in the future to make the website, the web version, that people could get on their desktop or their iPad? Well, I guess if they had the iPad or another device, they'd have the app. But still, the website to where the content, the directory, if you will, that you guys have could be browsed and consumed right from their, let's say, Chrome browser, Internet Explorer, or Firefox browser, or what have you.
We definitely need, so 95% of listening is on mobile devices presently for Stitcher. We definitely website needs a makeover, and we have plans for it. What we found, though, in general, is that it at least from what we've seen from our experiences, and then exploring usage patterns for folks, is that people listen to music at the desk a fair amount, but most folks listen to non-music content when they're on the go doing other things. At their computer, they will either read or watch a video, but it's difficult to be working and then also listening to talk as well, which is why we haven't prioritized the makeover of the website. But we certainly will be in the future, because there are listeners that want to hear it from their computer, and we want Stitcher to be wherever a listener wants to hear it.
That's awesome. And I see just in my own mind some uses for revamping some of that stuff and having that available, such as, it'd be cool from the app if you could share, hey, I'm listening to this. Wow, this is an amazing conversation in this episode. Click here to share on Twitter, Facebook, whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden that goes out. But for those who have a mobile device, they can click a link and maybe it opens up Stitcher Radio on their mobile device. Or if I happen to be seeing that on my desktop, I click a link and it takes me to a web version of Stitcher where I could immediately either be taken to that particular episode, or even better, right to the moment from the timestamp of when they actually said, hey, start here.
That's absolutely right, and we have some of that in place already. And we as you may know, we did a very tight mobile integration with Facebook, which basically for folks that want to publish to their timeline, it will publish listening to their timeline automatically. But a lot of listening to what people publish, which obviously from a virality perspective is fantastic for producers of content. But then we see that a fair number of people do click on that content on their desktop, and we want to improve that. We want to improve that experience.
One of the things that was the most popular question that the Podcast Answer Man community wanted me to ask you is how your affiliate program works.
Yes. The affiliate program is theoretically simple in concept, but has frankly been tougher in execution. The basics of it is that Stitcher pays $1 for each new user sent our way. We give you a promo code and assets to get you set up. We know there's been a pretty long path between from hearing a message about Stitcher and the promo code and getting to the app stores or websites to download the app. And we can only display the results of the promo code, but we apply other calculations to determine new listeners that should be attributed to the show. So we look at new user listens to that show, searches, hits to the landing page to determine the payout. We begin paying a content producer when they hit 100 new Stitcher users, and partners who've been successful in the program have been able to convert somewhere between 7 to 10% of their listening audience to the program. We are looking to alter the system in the future. We want to align incentives better. We basically wanted to put a foot forward to provide another incentive for content producers to talk about Stitcher as a preferred listening platform, and to and to share in the benefit. But there are a lot of questions that come up about it, and it's early days, and we aim to fix what's confusing.
All right, very cool. So I know that there's a lot of things that you guys are looking to improve in that area to kind of take away some of the confusion that exists there. Obviously you have the affiliate program as it is today, which is just a flat referral and of new users, $1 per user. Do you guys have plans for advertising and shared revenue in the future?
We do, and right now we don't have a direct sales force, but are going to begin to focus more on monetization. Thus far, we've been focused a lot on just making Stitcher the best product it can be, building content partner relationships, and getting on all of the platforms that we need to be on. But we obviously need to have a revenue stream, and we do plan to share that revenue with content producers. And so, and what we wanted to do in the meantime, even though we're not monetizing, is provide some incentives, show some goodwill as we're building these relationships. But we absolutely plan to share, either do a revenue sharing or some type of some other form where incentives are aligned, and content producers can reap all of the rewards beyond just extending reach and metrics.
Excellent. Now, the next thing that I want to bring up, and by the way, I am just marking here, I'm at 26 minutes and 40 seconds into this interview, because what I am about ready to ask you is not going to be included in the version of this interview that's going to go into another show, because it's going to be released before an embargo. But I'm happy to announce that we'll probably be one of the first places, at least in podcasts, where you're going to be sharing some new information, some pretty exciting stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and ask the questions that have been out there and see where this leads us to with some new things you guys are adding. So the next question I have is there any way to determine on Stitcher how your show ranks in comparison to other shows in similar topic area, like you can do in iTunes, for example, where you can see the top 200 episodes or top 200 podcasts within a given category?
Very glad you asked. Something that we've been working on for a long time, and are soon to announce. And by the time listeners are hearing this, we will have just announced it, and this will be one of the first places where folks will hear about it. We're going to begin publishing a Stitcher list, and which will update weekly. And basically, we'll be showing not only what's most popular, what the most popular shows are, but also what shows are most shared, and other things like which shows are fastest moving in terms of popularity increase. We want to give as many shows as possible a chance to make the list, and to become discovered through the Stitcher list.
I love this idea. The Stitcher list. Is this now? Where's this going to be? Is this in app? Is this going to be on the website? How are people going to see this list?
It's initially going to be on the website, and then we will at some point likely put at least a subset of it that listeners would be interested in into the app itself. We want everybody to see it. It's very valuable information, and we want content producers to benefit by their ranking and know whether they're improving.
I like the idea that you're looking at various different metrics. One of the issues with iTunes, and it's a big gripe that many podcasters have, is number one, they don't tell us anything about how they're calculating ratings and results and rankings. But here's the other thing we know is that a podcast who has 750,000 subscribers, like This Week in Tech, it's possible for them to not show up as number one when obviously they're probably in technology, they're definitely the number one. Now, they do have enough new subscribers, enough new material, enough new downloads in iTunes that keeps them in the top of the list. But it's very possible for a podcast who maybe has slowly built an audience over the past 6 years to not make it into the top 10 because you've got people who have maybe less subscribers, but recently they've added a lot of newer subscribers, and we seem to have some kind of indication that has something to do with iTunes ratings. Is it going to be, are you going to rank popularity by just the number of people who are subscribed to, such as this is an ongoing thing, this isn't just within the last week, this is the most popular? Or is it something that's going to be more time sensitive when it comes to the most popular list?
We certainly, we want it to be, one, we want it to be facts, but we don't want it to be static. And obviously that's why iTunes does it the way that they do it. We also want to be fully transparent with how we calculate the information, and so I'm actually not certain how we're doing it with the first list, but we don't want it to we want it to dynamically change, which is why part of why we are unearthing other things like most shared and fastest moving. So there will be some both algorithmic and time, the rolling time will be the previous week, and then we'll tweak it as needed. But the idea is that we'll create a standard that allows folks to see really where they are, but also allows some movement on the list.
So it's possible for Podcast Answer Man. Let's just say that This Week in Tech gets 500,000 shares, and that happened. Let's just say that happened 2 years ago. But today, I go to Podcast Answer Man and I say, hey guys, I would really love it if you'd do me a favor and go and share. And let's just say that the average amount of shares that a podcast gets is somewhere between 1,000 or something like that for one of the most populars. And I get 5,000 of my listeners to go and say, hey, share me. So it's possible that I actually could show up as number one in one of the reports as being one of the most shared podcasts, even though Twit in the past has had, exponentially larger numbers. That's
absolutely right. And pretty compelling from a listener perspective to listen to something that is that shared. It's indicative of either, some incredibly compelling content and or a very strong following, both of which is appealing to a listener.
Can a listener share a podcast? Do listeners share podcast shows, or do they share episodes? And can they share a podcast more than once?
They can share a podcast more than once. I think the way that we calculate it is by show, but in the previous week. So if they shared a show that wasn't the current show, but they shared it in the last week, that would count.
Gotcha.
And they can share. We have one-click share to Facebook, Twitter, and also emailing a friend.
Nice. So, and the other question I have here is, what's the process? That there's this top pick email mailing list that you send out every now and then, where you feature a top pick, a top show. I am very thankful to have been picked for this at one time in the past. And my good friend Caesar Abid, he's also a member of my podcast mastermind. He's wondering, what's the process? How does one get onto a top pick?
Yeah. So So one thing that we encourage just in general is make sure that you're communicating with your Stitcher rep, whether that's Rachel or Lisa or someone else. Let us know any big shows that you have that are coming up, because we'll be inclined to help support and feature those. And let us know, what just keep us in the loop about what's going on for you. We'll also, we look a lot at the metrics of listening, People internally have things that they really like, and that's helpful. And then to the extent that you're a supporter of Stitcher on your show as a listening platform for listeners, that obviously helps as well.
Sweet. And David from the Theater Geeks podcast wanted me to ask you, are there any opportunities that exist to market or increase the listenership on Stitcher? I would probably have to try to answer that question for you and tell me if I'm right, but it's really, getting people out there that are in your community to try to get onto the Stitcher platform and ask those people to share it, and therefore that's going to give you this more visibility through this new list, right?
That's absolutely right. And then the more listeners you have on the Stitcher platform, the higher the likelihood that your show will be recommended in our listeners also like list, and also in other stations, in addition to what you already mentioned.
Alrighty, and I'm going to mark my time here. It is 36:21 so that I can end the embargo. So we're done with all embargoed talk by now.
All right.
Let's see here. So 36:30 is what I'm going to write down. Actually, let me just fix that to 36. All right. So there are a couple other questions, and then I'll finally let you go. I know that you've got a busy day today, but one of the questions that I have for you is this special compression technology. I know that most of the shows are talk, and therefore the compression's not all that bad, but you get somebody who's got a 128 kilobit file, and they have, let's just say, a lot of music in it, like the intro of my show. And then all of a sudden that show gets pulled off of the content delivery network of mine, off of one download, and then you go in and recompress this and push it out to somebody else. It further throws out digital information bits about the music that was actually included in the front and the end of my show, or clips in between. I know that you had to do that because of the agreements and the regulations with cell carriers or Apple themselves or stuff like that. Is there anything that can be done about this in the future, do you see?
So a couple of things. First, the benefits, because we don't from an Apple perspective. It wasn't something that was necessary for us to do. What we were looking for, one, from a user perspective, and it was took a huge amount of work from a technology perspective to build the infrastructure to do this, and two, is more costly because then we basically end up hosting a set of content, and would prefer not to do it. So it was a very big investment for us to be able to do it. The reason that we do it is twofold. One, even as cell networks get better, and we've come a long way from the AT&T, the early days of the Edge network on the iPhone. We still want streaming to be lightning fast and very reliable. And then two, there are more and more bandwidth caps that we're seeing, and so people listen to Stitcher a lot, and so we want we want the footprint to be as low as possible, and it is quite low. And so we did a lot of testing. We're audiophiles ourselves. At first, when we were listening to some of the early stuff we got, we didn't love it a lot. We tested it a ton with listeners to make sure that the quality was high enough that there weren't complaints about it. And by and large, if you look at our reviews, we're 4.5 to 5-star app. Rarely does that come up as an issue, but we want the experience to be as good as possible. And so we can certainly be flexible with it in the future, depending upon what goes on in the industry. But that's the reason why we do it. And that's a big benefit we found for users, and therefore for content producers as well.
Well, I certainly understand where you guys are coming from, and the one thing that, as an audiophile myself, is this idea. I mean, I love the idea of your list. I love the idea of your rankings and ratings and getting more listeners and finding all these new people who got these cars and they've got these apps that have no idea what this stuff is, and boom, they click on technology, and boom, there's Podcast Answer Man. I want to be at the top. But at the same time, I don't know that I want to drive 98% of my audience to a lower quality file. And so that wars within me. But I certainly value what Stitcher brings to the table. And you make a compelling case for sending your audience there. I will give you that.
Much appreciated. And from one audiophile to another, it was, and a lot of us internally, it was a difficult decision, and there was a huge amount of testing, because at the core, what we want to do is provide the best experience for listeners. And so, and there's trade-offs with everything.
Two last questions, and I'll let you go. The second to last question is, do you have custom radio programs that are put on by Stitcher? Yesterday, I was invited to be on a show and had a great time, and I just wondered, is that an official Stitcher show, and do you have other shows that are official Stitcher branded?
That's our official Stitcher show, Meet the Talkers. We are not producers of content ourselves. There are many very talented folks out there who produce content, and we're focused on being a platform. But we do want to get to know and have let listeners, our listeners, get to know those great producers of content. So we created a show called Meet the Talkers, which you're starring in the current episode, to be able to talk to you about the industry and about your show and to get to know you better. That for us is really important, and it's just a fun project that we're doing internally. So that's the Stitcher show.
Excellent. And then the final question is, what are you working on for the future of Stitcher Radio?
So we're laser focused just on being the best place to consume audio content. We want to make it as easy as possible for listeners to find the shows that they already love and discover new ones. And we want that experience to be with them wherever they are and whenever they want to listen to Stitcher. So on the platform side, we're going to continue to roll out with more vehicle integrations. We'll continue to roll out great features on the iPhone and Android and other mobile platforms. You'll begin to see us. We're on Sonos, so you'll begin to see us more in the home as well. And then on the content partnership side, we're going to be providing more information for in the content partner portal and elsewhere for content producers that can be helpful to them, both in working to extend their reach into understanding their audience and to furthering the relationships.
Very cool. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see the roadmap ahead. Again, it took a lot for me to finally take notice and to investigate further, but I'm glad that I did. I do think that you guys are on the cutting edge. I know that you're going to be at Blog World and New Media Expo talking about, on the podcasting track, about the future of podcast distribution. I am so delighted to have you on that panel session. Can't wait to attend that. Folks, if you are listening to this, I encourage you right now, go to Stitcher.com, STITCHER.com, and scroll to the bottom, look in the footer on the right-hand side, it says Content Providers, and click the Sign Up button. Get your show into Stitcher. It's another way to get noticed and get some new listeners, and not a bad way to actually earn a couple extra bucks just by telling your audience about their application. Noah, thank you so much for everything. Man, what a valuable time to get to know about you and about Stitcher and its future. So thank you so much.
Cliff, thanks so much. It's an honor to be on your show, and I'm glad your show gets me and a lot of other listeners.
Well, my friends, that's going to wrap it up for this extremely long episode once again of Podcast Answer Man. I hope that you got a lot of value out of this one. I know that it's exciting to hear about what's going on with the future of Stitcher Radio. Cell phones have certainly increased the audience that is listening to our content, and I think bringing it into car stereos like Stitcher is doing is one of the ways of the future of podcasting, and I, for one, am excited about it. I also hope that you got a little bit of value out of the talk about personal brand versus your business brands or podcast brands or passion brands, whatever you want to call them. I hope that you got some value out of that. I'll put a link to the Entre Leadership podcast in the show notes for you guys. Just go over to podcastanswerman.com/263 for show notes for this episode. And also, real quickly, podcastingA2Z.com. podcastingA2Z.com. The July course is ready to roll. We're going to start Monday, July 9th, and we are going to end on Friday, August 3rd. 4 weeks of access to me to help you personally, and a small group, a very small class of people to launch a podcast. Everything you need to know, A to Z, it's there. You will have a podcast by the end of that course. If you apply yourself and you want to make it happen, you'll have everything you need and access to me, unlimited access to me for 4 weeks. Go check it out. Full details over at podcastingA2Z.com. There's a 7-minute video that explains the course, a lot of written text, and go there today. Now, if you want, you can go over to Podcasting A2Z and get registered, but do it soon because I'm only going to take 30 students this time. And I sent out, I had 24 people on the waiting list, sent out those emails at 2 o'clock this morning, and 5 people signed up immediately. So certainly get signed up as quickly as possible. PodcastingA2Z.com. Also want to remind you, Blog World is next week. If you can't attend, it's already too late for that. It's not. You can come to NYC. Just go over to podcastanswerman.com. Click on the link that says I'm speaking at Blog World. That's my affiliate link. Sign up using promo code GSPN10. You'll get 10% off. Now, if you want to, you can get the virtual ticket option, and that will allow you to have access if you can't make it. And it's a great option for you to get the recordings of every single session, not just the podcasting track, but every session for the Blog World and New Media Expo. Guys, I am out of time. So much more I wanted to include in this episode. I'm looking forward to episode 264. God bless you all. We'll talk to you actually in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I forgot, because I will be taking next week off because of Blog World. Wow, I almost forgot that one. I will see you in 2 weeks, my friends. God bless. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do, including your personal mission statement, to the next level.